Okay, hello viewers. That's the siren going off again. You can hear that. That's what you call a thunderbolt siren that we have here in Mineola. They call that the thunderbolt siren. But I'm going to make this video about the ongoing crisis with the virus and my feelings about it. You'll notice I cut my hair. I cut my own hair. I've known how I basically do it myself because it saves money, and I've been doing that for years. But for those who can't cut their own hair, it's very difficult because people, at least here in New York, you're still not allowed to have your hair cut at a barber shop. They're all closed, and the reason for that is the distancing that's required when people cut hair. They have to be close to each other. But at the same time, I'm going to talk about why we must reopen very soon, and the fact that people are running out of patience, and it's getting. I see both sides of the coin here. I see the side of, let's say, we're on the side of caution. We don't want this getting out of hand again with the hospitalizations, but at the same time. I also see the other side of the coin, whereas people can only take so much of this. People don't have an income. They have to go back to work. And I'm going to talk about my feelings regarding this and what I would do if I was in Governor Cuomo's shoes. Because I think the governor's been very transparent. I think he's done a good job. But I think it's time that maybe he's just not realizing certain things. And one of the things I'm going to criticize him over is, the importance of wearing a mask when you're around people. It's funny, when he has his press conferences, he doesn't have a mask on. And he's around other people. I understand he's 6 feet away from them, but he's in a enclosed space with his people. And, he's telling us in this situation he is in, sitting in the room with other people, to wear a mask, and yet he's not wearing a mask, and none of the people on Tucker Carlson brought this up. And look, I don't agree with everything Tucker Carlson stands for, but he's one of the people I've been watching lately because he's speaking out. He's calling out a lot of these elected officials who are basically telling us to do certain things, and yet they're not doing it themselves. He pointed out Andrew Cuomo's brother, Chris Cuomo, actually had the virus and was under quarantine, yet he was breaking that, and he was out of his house. He was building another house somewhere, and he was outside, and some biker on a trail went by and saw him, and the biker, I think, said, "Where's your mask?" And he just went off on the guy. And then there were other examples too of other officials across the country, breaking the rules that they tell us to listen to. So this is the kind of stuff you have in an authoritarian government, and why we must resist this authoritarianism with what we. Look, this is up to you. I'm not telling you what to do, all right? But I'm putting myself in the shoes of the small business owner, of the businesses and of the people out there, and what they're going through. A lot of people, they don't understand what it's like to have mental illness, and very few people put themselves in my shoes. But I try to be compassionate and think about everybody else that is going through this right now. And I think we have a situation where things are going to have to start reopening at the middle of this month, whether the governor likes it or not. This goes for all the stores. Because think about it. Now he's saying, well, you'll hear scientists talk, and the scientists make a very convincing, statement about we got to be cautious. We shouldn't rush into things. There was another video out there put by a scientist named Seema. I forgot her last name. She's absolutely beautiful. She's just the kind of girl I like. But anyway, she was talking about some of the things that we shouldn't rush into as well. But at the same time, the science, they'll say, well, we want to prevent as many deaths as possible. And I can understand that. We don't want to overwhelm the hospitals. But there are other things that kill people too, beside COVID. There's the flu. There's skin cancer. So, when it comes to those other two things, are you going to just lock everybody down every flu season to prevent people from dying? Or are you going to say, well, you can't go outside in the middle of the day in the summer because the solar radiation might give you skin cancer? I mean, where does it end? Where does it end? There is risk when you go out. And that is something that we all have to accept. I see it every day going out. I got to worry about, well, am I going to get hit by a car that's not paying attention? You know what I mean? There's risk every day. And I go hiking in the woods. Am I going to get bit by a tick that's going to give me Lyme disease? There is risk every day. And it seems like Governor Cuomo and a lot of governors, especially on the left, they just want to have the risk as minimal as possible. And I can understand that, but at the same time, there are other things that put people at risk. Let's get back to this virus here. He's like, well, we don't want the restaurants to reopen, or we don't want the malls to reopen, because that's just going to be one more place people are going to go to and be in contact with each other. What about the grocery stores, Mr. Cuomo? They're still open. Walmart's still open, and I go to the supermarket every day, and I'm nervous about going there. I make sure I have my mask on, but I'm worried about touching stuff in there. If it's contaminated or not. And when I get out of there, I wipe everything down with alcohol. All right? What about that? People are taking that risk because they have to get food somehow. They have to get food. So I just don't understand it. And it comes to a point where, the metrics may not, the metrics and the data may not agree to say, all right, we got, but if you look at what he wants in the data, it's going to be a long time before Long Island reopens. And we can't afford to stay closed into June. We can't afford it. Our business can't afford it. People can't afford it. Our mental health can't afford it. And the government is not going to stop us come the end of this month. We are going to reopen on Long Island, whether the governor likes it or not. We're going to reopen the dining rooms. We're going to reopen the stores. We're going to reopen the malls. In fact, I've read something that Simon's going to reopen the malls on May 16th. So Simon might be starting to defy the order. And I'm going to see more. And I'm not telling you to defy the order. All right? What I'm saying is people are going to defy the order because they have to choose between losing their entire business, losing everything they've worked for, or reopening and starting to cut their losses. And then Governor Cuomo will say, well, you're putting money before people's lives. Well, they need money to pay for food and housing, and they need money to survive, Mr. Cuomo. I'm going to go after Cuomo on this because, I said, I think he's done a good job. But now I think he's pushing his luck with me, all right? Because he still wants to enforce this now going into May. You're not going to be able to enforce it. People are going to reopen. And there's not going to be a damn thing. He admitted there's not a damn thing he's going to be able to do about it. All right? But when we reopen, we have to do it responsibly. If somehow a supermarket can be open and limit the amount of people in there, why can't a mall? Why can't a clothing store? Why can't a restaurant? I know somebody pointed out, well, if restaurant people are eating, they can't wear a mask. Yeah, well, then it's 6 feet apart then. Have the tables over 6 feet apart. That's what you do. You have to have the tables 6 feet apart. Where I go to eat, the tables are already mostly 6 feet apart, which just makes it even more ridiculous that I can't go in there and eat. And somebody commented, don't sit down there, they're going to call the police on you. Look, I'm not going to do that, obviously. I don't want to, do that. It's not the kind of defiance I'm going to do, all right? What I'm talking about is if you're a small business, and if I did own that particular place that I go to eat, I would open the dining room. I would defy the order by the end of the month. I would open the dining room. I would just do it. That's all. And then that's what I would do. I'm just telling you what I would do if I was in their shoes. That's true. They're probably not hurting that much because they have a drive-through. But a lot of the other restaurants are hurting. There are some in Mineola that don't know how they're going to survive. And the last thing I need to see is more closed stores in Mineola. I want these stores, just reopen already. Just defy it. If it comes to the point where staying closed is going to put you out of business, then you got to reopen. All right. That's all I'm saying. All right. If some people don't like that, it's too bad. Obviously, certain demographic isn't bothered by it. I think they went big today on Wall Street because a lot of the other states are reopening. I think with 30 states reopening or something like that. And then there's another thing. Well, reopening, the numbers are going to go up. Yeah, the infection rate's going to go up. Disease will spread. It's true. You're not going to be able to prevent everybody from dying. That's the sad reality of it, because you can't provide everybody from dying from the flu. You can't provide everybody. You can't. Sorry, you can't prevent everybody from dying from the flu. You can't prevent people from dying from sun exposure due to skin cancer. You can't prevent people. If you did that, everybody would be locked in their homes forever. You can't do that. There is risk when you go out. All right? And, everybody's just afraid, and they're controlled by the fear that's being spewed forth by the mainstream media and by the left. Yeah, I'm making it political. All right? Because I don't want to see Mr. Orange Monster, a.k.a. Donald Trump, get another term in office. But if the left keeps pushing and pushing this, it's going to turn against them in the election. And the last thing we need is 4 more years of Donald Trump. All right, but that's exactly what's going to happen. All right, and then what's going to happen in New York is everybody is going to move out of New York. They're going to move to the states that are open. They're going to move to the states that allow them to do business, that don't tax them to death. That's where they're going to move. And New York will be ruined. Long Island will be ruined. Is that what we want? I don't want that. I don't want a lot of people to die either. But the fact is, there is risk involved when you go out. We can do this by minimizing the risk. All right? If everybody wears a mask, the disease can't spread out. All right? People wear masks on their face when they're around other people within less than 6 feet. The mask is not so much designed to stop you from getting the germs. It's to stop you from spreading the germs. So by having the mask on, it's going to catch most of those particles that come out of your nose or mouth if you have the virus and stop them. All right? So they don't spread. All right? We are going to have to reimagine things. I mean, when I was at the grocery store, I noticed, why are there no... When you walk in, there should be a thing that just sprays alcohol on your hands to make sure your hands are clean. And then when you go to the register, there should be another thing to spray alcohol on your hands to make sure your hands are clean before you touch anything. That'll help stop the spread of disease. All right, they should be doing that. They're not doing that. All right, why don't we have that? Ultraviolet light is possibly another thing we're going to have to need to look into, perhaps. Maybe when you go to the grocery store and your food goes down a conveyor belt, it's going to have to go under an ultraviolet light to make sure all the germs on the surface get killed. All right? We can do this. We can open the restaurants and have people 6 feet apart. We can open the malls and require people to wear a mask inside. We can open Macy's and the department stores and require people to wear a mask when they're inside. All right? And before they go in, you get alcohol and maybe even temperature checked. All right? Those are the kind of things. And all the businesses, we're going to have regular testing of employees to make sure they don't have the virus. But then there's the other angle of it. Well, what about herd immunity? That was talked about in Seema's video. We just don't know because this virus you may not be immune from it after getting it. You might be able to get it again in a month or two. It's not like some of the other viruses out there. But the thing with this virus is it's not a really rapid mutation, but it mutates. But with each mutation, it grows weaker. So there's another angle at it. But I'm not saying everybody just be careless. People confuse when I say I want things to reopen as me being careless. Somehow they think it's me being careless about people's health. No, it's not about being careless. It's about people being able to live their lives again. It's about people's mental health. It's about the economy. And when people say it's about the economy, you're putting people's lives, you're putting people's money ahead of people's lives. People are going to die if a lot of people aren't getting unemployment yet. People are committing suicide. Suicides have gone up a lot. All right, there's going to start being more murders and stuff going on. All right, is this what we want in the United States of America? No, this is not what we want. All right, I'm not putting a price on people's lives, but like I said, there's risk every day when you go out, and you have to minimize that risk. When it comes to the sun and not getting skin cancer, you have to try put sunscreen on or sit under the shade and avoid direct sunlight. When it comes to going outside and walking around, you got to make sure you're aware of your surroundings and not looking at your phone so you don't get hit by a car, or you got to pay attention. And the same kind of thing, and the same kind of strategy is what we're going to use to cope with this virus. Is that we got lazy with our hygiene. People weren't washing their hands. They weren't taking care of themselves. People were being lazy, and we had a bad sanitation network across our country where people got lazy. They touched too many things, and things weren't getting cleaned properly. I mean, the trains were hardly getting cleaned at all. It was horrible. Now we're gonna have to clean those things every day. That's why the subway's been shut down overnight. We have to step up the cleaning of everything. We got too complacent. But at the same time, we've got to resume our lives here. I hear different. Phil Murphy, I think, extended the emergency order. I don't know if that extends the shutdown for another month. People can't go another month. They're going to open up anyway. Look, I'm not saying now is the time to reopen, but all right, now I'm going to tell you what I would do if I was Governor Cuomo. All right, I would open Upstate first. But I don't like the way he has it set up by industry. Like certain industries open up in phase 1, and then other industries open up in phase 2, and then the restaurants, which are the most struggling small business. Oh, and that's another point. How come these big box stores and these chains like Walmart and all these other stores, they're allowed to be open, but the small business can't be open? They can afford to. The small business can't afford to be closed. All right, they can't afford to be closed. That's another point that I want to make. So getting back to what I was saying, the governor has it in phases. And in phase 2, he said real estate and financial. That's there just because of a certain demographic, obviously. But I would do it completely differently. The phases would be based not on the industry, but on the amount of people allowed in an establishment. All right? So I would allow all non-essential establishments to open up in phase 1. Except for establishments where social distancing is impossible, such as schools, such as theaters, that kind of thing. But what I would open, offices, construction, the restaurants, the malls, and the non-essential stores. And there would be a 25, we'll make it a 25% or maybe 30% capacity limitation, meaning that you can only have 30% of the listed capacity inside at any given time. All right, so you're gonna have a 30% workforce with construction. You're gonna have and the restaurant. Then it says occupancy of occupancy of more than 70 persons unlawful. Well, that's gonna be 30% of 70. All right, and everybody has to be either 6. There's gonna be a cardinal rule here, either 6 feet apart plus or a mask. Right? It's that simple. If you can't be more than 6 feet apart, then you have to have the mask. All right? Any establishment will have to provide hand sanitization upon entry and upon exit. That's the second thing that I would do. And then in phase 2, we'd move up to 50% occupancy of all these places. And yes, I would start Upstate first. And I would have started Upstate on May 1st, on phase 1. All right. For Long Island, I would have started phase 1 on May 15th. But Cuomo does not indicate that he wants to do that. And again, his whole system is screwed up, in my opinion. All right. So, look, I'm going to criticize the governor in this, all right, because I think he's done a good job. But now I think he's starting to go a little too far. So, phase 2. All right, so phase 3, we go to 75% of normal occupancy. And then phase 4 would finally involve the schools and the theaters reopening. But that's all going to have to be reimagined. And phase 4 would be a long ways away. But I would want to start I would have started Upstate on phase 1, and I would have started Long Island and New York City on phase 1 in May 15th, and then June at the beginning of June, we do this in like 2 weeks. I think I do this in like 2 or 3 week blocks. that we'd move on to the next phase. In June, we'd move to phase 2. And then at the end of June, we would move to phase 3. We do it very slowly and carefully. But we need to start getting these places open. And I know people will argue, well, small businesses, they can't make money if they have very few people in the restaurant. That's true. So there's a way we can deal with that by increasing the amount of outdoor seating. All right, so we can, and that sound you hear, yeah, they're doing construction again. So I noticed they're not really technically allowed to, but they're doing the construction anyway. So people are losing patience. So they're losing patience. They're doing it. I'm seeing more cars in the parking lot at the trains. People are starting to reopen, and we're going to start on pausing on our own, Mr. Governor, because people can't do this anymore. All right, so that's the point I want to make, is that we need to start reopening very, very soon. Otherwise, the people will do it for you, and you're better off working with the people than working against the people. All right, remember, we the people are the government in this country, not you. All right, you are there to represent us. This goes to any elected official out there. All right. Yes, there will be an increase in cases when we reopen. There will be. That's unavoidable. There will be an increase in cases. But by doing it carefully and taking all these steps to prevent the spread of disease, we will not have an uncontrollable situation. Remember, the whole purpose of this whole shutdown was to flatten the curve and make sure the hospitals weren't overwhelmed. And the hospitals are not overwhelmed anymore. All right, it's under control. We want to keep it under control. We do that with those mitigation measures. We continue it while reopening. Just because I want things to reopen doesn't mean we are just going back to the way it was before, because we are not going back there. We are not going back to the way it was before for an extremely long time. You're not going to be able to, there's places that are going to be wall-to-wall people. That is something that's not going to happen until after we have a vaccine. All right? But at the same time, we have to start reopening and having a different kind of way of reopening. So when I was talking about the restaurant, I was saying that maybe they need to start having more outdoor dining to make up for, you know, the fact that the seats inside, if they space the seats inside 6 feet apart, they're not going to be able to fit enough people in there to make money. So they'll have to have more outdoor dining, perhaps on the outside on the sidewalk. And I will commend Bill de Blasio. He has closed off some streets in the city. And this is an idea that they think. So some of those businesses in the city, remember, New York City is much more dependent on those small restaurants, and they may have to have the actual the places, the sidewalks, and maybe even the streets have, you know, outdoor dining, but 6 feet apart. That's an idea to do, you know. And of course, when you go in line at any place, you're going to have to be 6 feet apart. 6 feet apart, or wear a mask. That is the Cardinal Rule going forward, I think. And as far as public transportation, it'll be the same thing. And we're going to have to look into how do we avoid overcrowding. This is why we have to go very slow with the reopening. So when we reopen things at low capacity, it won't overwhelm the transit system. And the transit system will slowly be able to bring back more service to meet that demand. Now, on the other end, we have Donald Jock-ass Trump, who doesn't want to send any more money to New York to help us out, which is absolutely ridiculous. Pompous, just because somehow people who want to reopen are Trumpers. I'm not a Trumper, but I want to reopen. I know people look at the protests and they see that. And there are going to be way more protests as longer this goes on. And we don't need to see more protests, because the protests are going to be places, they're not going to wear the masks, they're going to be defiant. And that's what I'm saying. You've got to work with the people. If you don't work with the people are going to do their own thing, and it's going to turn out worse than if you work with the people. So that's the point I want to make. So we're going to have to reimagine things. We're going to have to do things differently. That is something that is definitely going to happen going forward. But we have to reopen things soon. And I really think that if things don't start allowed to reopen on Long Island by the middle of May or maybe the end of May, we're going to see huge protests, and things are just going to start reopening on their own. And that's what's going to happen. Now, yeah, it's been very hard on me, obviously, this whole thing. It's very lonely when You go to your towns and people aren't around. This is another thing that people don't understand is that this affects everybody differently. Everybody has their own way of coping with this. Some people have no problem staying at home all the time. Most of those people live in houses. Most of those people have family they're with. They're not alone. So it's not that hard to stay home all the time. They have a backyard they can go out into. But there are other people that live in apartments that like this place that I live in. All right, I have to go out every day. It's hard not going out. This place is a small. It's a small apartment. All I have is windows that face a brick wall. I don't have a view of the outside. People have to be able to look outside every day, and get outside every day. And get fresh air. And it's hard to do that in this place. People are gonna rethink their way of living, and that's my other concern. And I spoke about this in the other face-to-face video I did, is that New York City is going to see. I'm really worried, and there's already word that there's been mass exodus out of New York City, and we all know it's going to be the people who have money that are going to be moving out, and they want to move out to the suburbs, and they're going to probably, who knows, New York City housing prices could really drop off a cliff. The housing value as well in the suburban areas, they may go up, and I'm sure all those people. I'm sure there's even more pressure on those South Shore enclaves. Certain demographics, they're setting up their own enclave there, and it's going to get even more desirable. We could see home prices drop another 20 to 50% perhaps in those neighborhoods a year from now. Maybe a possibility that it could happen. Other people are leaving New York entirely and going to other states. And it's going to just drive up property values there. And I don't blame people for wanting to move out of apartments. I think it's not a great way to live. I would much rather have a house and a yard than live in an apartment. Yeah, of course. I don't have the money for that. On Long Island, you need a lot of money to have those things. I don't have that, so and I'm disabled, and even if I won the lottery and got, like, let's say $1 million, the government would take a lot of it, and then, all right, so let's say I'd have $750,000, and they still would say, well, what do you do? Oh, you're disabled, we're not going to sell to you. It'll be the same kind of discrimination that you have with apartments. So forget it. Not going to happen. I'm not going to have a house unless, I get married or something. Seema, will you marry me? Just kidding. She's beautiful. Oh, man. And yeah, if you have a girlfriend, you have some significant other, it's not that bad. I'm all by myself, and there are a lot of people out there all by themselves, and that's who this whole thing has been really hard on. I have to have my therapy through the Zoom app, which is okay, I guess, but it's still not like being in the office. But the reason why we can't go to the office is we can't be 6 feet apart. But why can't we go to the office and just wear masks? If we all wear masks, then we can go to the office. But no, not allowed to. Same thing with the bar. People got to get their hair cut. Open the damn barber shops. Just have people wear masks. People are going to start defying this a lot, because it's gone on way longer than we all thought. Here's something. So in the middle of March, I saw my psychiatrist. I see my psychiatrist every 2 months, and we made an appointment for the middle of May, or made an appointment actually this week, and I got a call saying, well, no, you can't come into the office. It's going to call you. So it'll be over the phone. And when I saw him back in March, I'm like, well, I guess I'll see you in March. It should be better by then, hopefully. He's like, yeah, it should be. We never thought it would drag on this long. It's gone on long enough. It's time to get out of this lockdown. It's time to break free. And I'm sorry if some people don't like it. And look, I understand the scientists behind it, and I understand all that. But we have to get out of the nest, and we have to start living our lives again. It's not going to be like before, but we have to start and just do it cautiously. If we all wear the masks and sanitize, I think it's going to stop the spread of disease. It's going to minimize the spread of this disease. There will be a small uptick in cases, but it will minimize the spread of this disease. By no means am I advocating complete carelessness and going back the way we were before, because that's not going to happen. All right? The social distancing is going to be with us for quite, or should I say, physical distancing is going to be with us for quite a while. All right? And so we have to stay 6 feet away from strangers, all right? And if we can't, then we have to wear a mask. That's the way it's going to have to be for a while. Some people don't like the whole wearing the mask thing. Well, it's proven that wearing the mask helps a great deal stopping the spread of the disease. However, some people go too far with the masks and say, you got to wear it outside when you're walking in a park. No. As long as you're 6 feet away from other people, you don't have to wear the mask. And my concern is now people are going to be going out and walking in parks with masks on once it gets hot, and they're going to start passing out. That's not healthy either. So there's an appropriate time to wear a mask, and that is when you're within 6 feet of others, especially in an indoor environment. But if you're outside and you're more than 6 feet away from other people, and you're going to a park, don't need a mask. Don't wear that. What can I say? And that's the other thing that Cuomo pissed me off on. He's like, well, now I'm going to suggest that municipalities can start fining people for not wearing masks. No, that's not going to work. You're going to get more pushback again. The power is going to his head a little. I think it's starting to go to his head. We have to take a stand for our own rights here. It seems like, and this is on both sides of the aisle. There are Republican governments too that have gone too far in this whole thing as well. All right, so it's not just the Democrats. I'm not just throwing shade at the Democrats here. We all saw what happened in Ocean County. Ocean County, closed their parks and heavily patrolled them and heavily enforced it before New Jersey closed their parks. And Ocean County is still telling people, well, you should wear a mask when you go to the park, which is ridiculous. I would not wear a mask for a hike. I would pass out if I did. You need to have that airflow into you. That's not, that's ridiculous. And they're run by Republicans. So it doesn't matter the party. There's some other states. I think Maryland also is being very stubborn about wanting to reopen as well. And they're run, and I think the governor there is Larry Hogan. And I think he's done a pretty good job too. But again, all these elected officials, as time goes by, people can't take much more of this. The scientists will say, well, this is what works. But Cuomo put up a thing. He said science and facts versus emotion and politics, or something like that. But emotion is important. People's mental health is important. You can't keep people locked down indefinitely for weeks and weeks on end. People will defy. And look, I'm not going to say go ahead and defy it, but if you need to defy it for your own mental health and for your own financial health, go ahead and do it. I'm not going to tell you not to, all right? Because we have to start resuming our lives, all right? We have to resume our lives in a different way, but we have to resume our lives. And that means starting to reopen. And the whole phase system needs to be changed completely. This is not even based on CDC, the CDC guidelines. Cuomo threw a whole bunch of other stuff in there, which was not needed, all right? And I know some of you are going to disagree with me. That's okay. Open discussion is important, but we have to start reopening. People can't take this much longer, all right? Lastly, there's going to be a poll in this video. Do you think we should start reopening this month in New York? Yes or no? It'll be simple like that, something like that. So please, vote in the poll and stuff. I've seen polls, a couple of polls on News 12 Long Island that said we should start reopening right now on Long Island. That was the majority of people have felt that way on the News 12 poll. But I don't think we should start reopening right now, but I think once we get toward the middle of May 15th, I think we need to start. If not May 15th, if the numbers aren't quite there yet on May 15th, then maybe the last week of May. But we have to start reopening Long Island sometime this month, and even some of the county executives are now talking about this, and we may see some counties making up and doing their own thing, independent of the state, But let me make one more point clear before I end this video. Just because I want to reopen doesn't mean I'm putting a price on people's health. All right, because the fact is that if we do it carefully and we do it with the proper cautions, we'll minimize the disease spread. Yes, sure, there may be an increase of infection. It doesn't mean that more people are going to necessarily die from it. All right, that's the other thing that I want to talk about. I almost forgot is that the death rate has gone way down. All right, so the virus is not as fatal as originally feared. Yet we're still acting like it is. So that's the other thing. It's still not something you want to play around with. Neither is the flu. So all the things that are out there to harm us, we have to protect ourselves from. We protect ourselves from the sun with sunscreen. We protect ourselves from COVID-19 with the mask and sanitize. But we have to start going out and living our lives again. We're not going to just stay inside and avoid the sun. Oh, we're just going to stay inside and avoid the sun because it could give us skin cancer. Or we're going to stay inside because we don't want to catch COVID. I mean, there is some risk involved in life. That's just the way it is. You have to live your life, because if everybody just stays at home in fear, it's a miserable life to live. And you're imprisoning people in fear. And the media is guilty of it. Some government officials are guilty of it. And it's time this nonsense stops. So this is up to you what you want to do. All right. But I'm going to say that we're going to start seeing. I'm giving you my opinion. All right. And my opinion is that if we don't start reopening New York sometime this month, there will be mass defiance. And I don't want to see people defying anything. I'd rather see the government work with the people and allow us to reopen without us having to defy any of these orders. So that is going to be it. Take care. Thank you for watching. I wish all of you the best of health. And remember, when you do go out, practice those common sense things. Make sure this is simple. All right, this is simple. Try to keep the social distancing. As another thing I've noticed, people have to move away from each other. If you're walking past another person on the sidewalk, move away. Make sure they're 6 feet apart. All right. If you can't do that, then you have to wear a mask. It's that simple. It's 6 feet apart, we'll wear the mask. It's that simple. All right. And before you touch that mask, make sure that you keep your hands sanitized. Carry sanitizer with you, alcohol, whatever. And make sure your hands, or wash your hands first, because if your hands are contaminated and you touch your mask, now you're just contaminating yourself. So you have to make sure before you put on the mask that your hands are clean, and when you take off your mask, the hands are clean. All right, it's not that hard. All right. So again, take care. Thank you for watching, and let's reopen things soon. Take care.